All right, hey everybody, I'm here with Dan Masucci, the Inked Mage, the Dungeon Master your mother warned you about. Or is that it?
That's it. That's
Uh,
exactly right.
Perfect. So yeah, dude, we just wrapped up session one of Dungeons of Destruction. That was absolutely insane. Uh, what'd you think about DMing a game like that?
It was different. It was different for a couple of reasons. I normally have a home game where I'm used to characters that my friends have played. This was a 10th level adventure, so I would have seen their abilities go up, in power as they leveled. So I was coming into this fresh with characters that were built and the craziest builds. I mean, a paladin rogue using hexes and stuff. It was absolutely nuts. So it was different in that they were built to defeat an encounter, and that's really what this is. This is like the most extreme elimination challenge. This is Wipeout. This is a fun session meant strictly, to power through, kill or be killed. And I joke that the thorny bushes were the MVP
They
of
were.
the opposition, because you guys really just ripped through everything rather handily. And I think the your biggest adversary besides the bushes was the timer, the countdown, and that pressure was on. I could see it. I could see it in the faces and hear it in
Feel
the
it.
tenor of the
Oh,
voices. Yes.
oh. There's something about playing a game where the clock is running,
Yeah.
and just that mental click. And in a game like this, I feel like you'd have a blast playing it for 4 hours. I think you'd feel stressed at two. For
Yeah.
1 hour, it was nuts.
In
Absolutely nuts.
Yeah, in fourth edition they had these weekly adventures called Lair Assault, and it was basically it was sans role playing. It was just dive in, kind of similar to this in terms of it was an encounter, and you were expected to pretty much perish and keep coming back until you defeated that particular challenge. So it was kind of fun like that, and I even felt a little pressure on the clock because I wanted you guys to make it at least, and if you failed trying to reach that final pinnacle, reach the crystal and defeat the ape king.
What um what do you think you do differently now that you've run one of these? And hopefully we do these again.
Oh man, you know what? I really went big in terms of the terrain build. I really wanted to push and test Vorpal board, and put it really to the test by building something really huge, and I did. I think I mean, I could go a lot smaller. I think we could do a much smaller location and fewer foes to face. In fact, I'm already thinking about what I would do next, what the next encounter would be. I think I would also, for this particular encounter, I think it would have been more ideal for players fifth, sixth, level. I was going to throw in a couple giant apes because I had them, and why not throw in giant apes? And then I was like, no, I've got to pull back. They're only 10th level, given the nature of the other creatures. And my wife, when I was gathering up everything to bring over and build, my wife was like, oh, what about the giant apes? And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I explained why, and she said, I really think you should. And I really think I should have listened to her. Yeah.
Wise words of the day. Listen
Yeah.
to your wife.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
All right, so obviously on Instagram you are known for some pretty epic builds, and this style of building is right up your alley. I mean, that's why you almost have 13,000 followers at this point, doing things like this weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, with a very diverse set of products,
Yeah.
from very very high end to homemade. So walk us through this build. It's very quintessential Inked Mage. What'd you use?
So, and I can use the pointer over here. So you'll see a lot of the foliage, and so the hedges and trees come from Monster Fight Club, as does this mat here. That's their mat, along with Rock Hill pieces from Monster Fight Club. And then you'll notice there's a lot of cliff faces, and I made those cliff faces. And painted them so they would match my Monster Fight Club Rock Hills. So I could use them in conjunction. Along the bottom, there's a lot of Dwarven Forge, Aranthor Mountain pieces, and their Cavern riser pieces, just so I could mingle them in and create a base, because underneath, behind them, is just foam. And actually, you can see back here, this is just black foam behind Thad's behind your hand right here.
Yeah, a bunch of just
So
styrofoam to stack it
it's
up.
just stacked styrofoam so
I'm
that
gonna
I could
take
then
apart
just,
your build.
so that I could then use this as a base to get some height.
Well, and then here's a good shot of the Monster Fight Club trees. They're
Yeah,
phenomenal.
and they're great because you can also take the canopy off, and I have some pieces in
The tree
here.
version of it.
Yeah, I have some pieces in here from Printable Scenery for their Goblin Grotto, as well as down here along the river's edge. This is there. Some of these bushes are just fish tank bushes, that you would use. Yeah, that right.
This looks like it's from a pet
It's
store.
Yep, exactly. It's just good cheap stuff. One thing that I always get asked about lately since I discovered it is my vines. Dan, what do you do to make your vines? I'd like to say I made them. I'd like to take that credit, but really this is just frayed yarn that I found at Michael's craft store. So it really came in handy when I was doing a large hag swamp setup, and now I just like to use them whenever, especially at Mountain of the Apes. So, what I wanted to do was just really challenge myself with creating a build that went up. I've had these WizKids Pathfinder ape minis, these flying apes, the Gorilla King, the
Oh
monk.
yeah, these guys are phenomenal.
Yeah, the monkey swarm, these baboon guardians, and I've had them for years, planning and waiting to do a an adventure like this, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. So this was like the perfect opportunity. Yeah, look at that guy. He's so great to get them in action, along with, and we did have them flying around on some axe and shield flight risers. So that was good.
Yeah, these are sweet, and they come apart, and you can add them. They're super modular.
Yeah, and
I was using them just as single posts a couple of times, and then
yeah, this was great because we were using them for people who were climbing up the cliff to just put the mini base on them. This build is 4 foot by almost 4 feet.
Yeah,
it's huge, and I think like I said, I wanted to put Vorpal board, and I've played on Vorpal board, and again, I believe it really is the closest online experience to an at-home game, if you are away from people that you would like to play with. And I wanted to put, and it's always stood up to the test, but I really wanted to put it through the paces here. And this was a massive build.
yeah,
and
you definitely did.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the only thing it did, rather than swiping out one build for another, a smaller build, we just adjusted the camera several times to make sure that we got the areas where the action was taking place.
Well, and yeah, and if you've watched any of our tutorials or any of our other big stream games, that's usually what I recommend to people, to try to keep like a 2 foot by 2 foot maximum field of view. Ideally, a foot by foot, if the action is small enough. So in this case, we had people. Steven ran right up to the top right out of the get-go.
Yeah.
And we still had people down in the grass in front of the cliff.
Yeah.
So it was a little more challenging, but a couple of the tricks, just move the camera or move the terrain into a tighter shot and get that nice isometric shot like we talk about all the time. But I got to show this one off because this is a little trick we picked up working with Dwarven Forge of this whole build. And of course, I'm trying to move a camera here live, but the whole build is on a sheet of plywood, and underneath the sheet of plywood is a Lazy Susan. So if you saw any of the dynamic shots we were doing there in the beginning, it's because I was spinning the whole terrain build on that Lazy Susan, so that you kind of it was cool for the dynamic, effect. But in a lot of smaller builds, if you need to just rotate around and get to a different spot.
Yeah.
It's really handy having that the ability to spin the terrain and keep the camera stationary.
Yeah,
So definitely a
absolutely.
pro tip there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is about as hard as you can get, and that's exactly what I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
Show something absolutely epic, um, and see what it's like to play it remotely. The thing I'm most impressed about your builds though is you are mixing stuff that's literally complete free, like literally like you said, some foam blocks that you just had kicking around that are trash to
Yeah.
help with elevation, and then some of these 2-inch foam pieces that all they cost you is paint,
Yeah.
and you're mixing it with some really high end
Yeah.
plastic terrain pieces. I mean, this is reasonably affordable
It is. You know what?
as big as it is.
Especially doing the crafting. I've always previously shied away from doing any kind of crafting because it's like, I don't have those chops. But, going online and finding a couple tutorials to create cliff pieces. I mean, all these pieces here, and you've got the Cliffs of Insanity, and it was really easy. It was a fun project my wife and I worked on together while watching cheesy LMN movies, and and we just powered through it. But like, what I like to do with my builds is to create things that are versatile. Now, I mean, so I can use that for the edge of, a river. I can use it. I can drop them down in a grassy hill, so there's just like some rocks, and I'll cover it with trees and stuff. I, for me, the best value is always what can you get and use that can be reused and repurposed and continually switched up. People would think that I have a fair amount of stuff I've been collecting for 15 years. People may think I have more than I do, but it's just getting in, being creative with what I have and reusing it in ways that are unexpected each time.
So let's talk about your. So obviously you have a very big Instagram following. I think one of the things that's so awesome about that is most of the time what you're showing on that Instagram are real your home game,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
home game you've been playing with your family for many years.
Yeah,
Um,
it's and actually I mean, when I joined Instagram, it was really just, because my then teenager was, had just been on Instagram. So I was like, oh, cool. All right. And what am I going to share? I'm going to share, pictures of something that I do. So I've had a weekly game with, this pretty much the same people for over 10 years now, which, it's been faithful. It's almost like clockwork every week. Rarely do we take off. And that, is unusual, and that's great. And in addition to that, I also, run something for my wife and youngest son. We're doing Dragon Heist, in Waterdeep. So, it's I didn't go into Instagram with any idea of creating a brand. I don't care about a brand. I don't care about a bit. Like, for me, it's like, this is what I love. And I tend to follow people who do similar stuff, things that I like to see. And sometimes, sometimes it is, it are pages that promote products. And, it was actually how we got connected was through Instagram. And so, if I'm on my page and I'm sharing what I normally do, it's because it's what I love. If I'm on my Instagram and I'm sharing a product, it's because what I love. It's I can't shill for something I don't love, right? And so it's not shilling. I'm just like sharing. Like, if I read a good book, I'm going to tell you about a good book. If I eat a good meal, I'm going to tell you about a good meal. I watch a good show, I'm going to tell you about it. There's a good product, check this product out, because I think that'll be of value to you too, if you want. And I always like to, because I feel bad sometimes when people make a comment that they say, "Oh, I'm so jealous," and because that's not what I want. I don't want anybody to be jealous. First off, I want you to know, like, it took many years of collecting, for me to like have this much stuff. But I just want to inspire people and just share something that maybe they enjoy seeing. The early days of D&D for me were played with Theater of the Mind. Some of the best adventures I ever had were Theater of the Mind. You can do that, and you can do that with Vorpal board too. And then, later on, came into like, the D&D 2D tiles and Pathfinder flip maps and dry erase maps, and I had a blast with that too. And sometimes I do those things as well. but my players, they're hard on me, and now I like, if I don't have an actual ape mountain, they'll complain that they have to use their imagination. So I've got to have a monkey king. I've got to have flying apes. If I just say, imagine this ape has wings, I'm in
Yeah.
trouble. So there's constantly like this challenge. I've got to keep elevating the game. So, but you don't have to. That's the ultimately, at the end of the day, it's storytelling. It's about the story, and it's about the shared storytelling, the shared experience and camaraderie. And you can do that just as easily with Theater of the Mind, with 2D maps, hand drawn on paper, whatever it takes to tell the story, so that you have stories to continually tell as the years go on. Those are the best games. Hey, do you remember that time when we stormed the Frost Giants' lair? That. Oh, I remember. Those are the things. Those are the moments that make it magic. That's what's magic about D&D. It's the enduring stories that you all remember.
So good memory for me is the game we did together, uh, right at the start of COVID, right when COVID hit. We were all planning on going to GaryCon in
Uh,
2019.
2020.
It was 2020. That's right. GaryCon
Yeah.
2020. We're already all booked. You and I were gonna unveil a big terrain set piece
Yep.
together, and then everything got canceled. So last minute we pulled together that awesome game, with the Manganiello brothers and Kevin from Galadoria and Tom
Yeah.
from Tabletop Things, if I
Yeah.
remember right.
Yeah.
Which is a super blast. Now, there's a funny backstory in there. Um, how did you meet Joe Manganiello, who's obviously pretty well known in the community?
Yeah.
And and I know this, but you're gonna have to tell the story. He played Dungeons and Dragons at your home dungeon
He,
here in New York, and he
he,
lives in California. So how in the world did that happen?
he did. He did. It was pretty funny because, on Instagram, he liked a couple of my posts, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I I was a big fan of his character on True Blood. In fact, he was my favorite character. And so it was neat. It was like, oh, Joe liked a couple of my posts, and so he made some comment, and so I commented and said, hey, man, if you're ever in New York, come by for some good pizza, and we'll throw some dice. And he said, great, I'll bring the hand of Vecna. And I was like, yeah, all right, perfect. And so he was so then he started following me, because again, it's the cool thing about the D&D online community is you kind of just, you can follow people who share this interest, this thing that kind of crosses many barriers, because there's this love of this epic heroic fantasy role-playing game. And turns out he messaged me, and he was like, hey, you're in the Albany area. And I was like, yeah. So he was coming to town to film an independent movie. He and his brother were going to be in town. And I said, oh, it sounds like you need to come and play some D&D then. And so he said, okay. And it's really just show you what, like, a real down to earth person he is, and not just down to earth, but a true fan of the game. I've made independent films, and I know how brutal the schedules can be. And on their one day off, they came and played D&D for 7 hours at my house, and were just like the nicest guys, just really, again, down to earth, but came in and just obvious that they loved the game, and we just had a really great time.
D&D it's insane how many people I've had the opportunity to meet. Just the community is phenomenal,
Yeah.
and you get to meet so many fantastic players and people of all walks of life,
Yeah. It
and have
wasn't
some pretty sweet adventures.
it wasn't always this way. When I was 16, and and this is saying something, because I've never been somebody who really cares a lot about, like, pleasing other people in terms of what they think about me.
Mhm.
But I remember being 16, and my mom had died that past summer, and the one thing I wanted for Christmas were D&D books. And I remember I got the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Unearthed Arcana, Dragonlance Adventures, did I say Monster Manual, and Oriental Adventures. And I got these books. I was so excited. I got these books. That was like my treasure. And somebody asked me when I got back to school, like, oh, what'd you get for Christmas? And I was like, oh, just, some books, just books, because there was a stigma about saying anything about D&D. It was not super cool. We were pretty cool though. We had a regular group. We played all the time. I had two, three if you count my brother. When he was back from the service, he took a little break. I mean, three of like the best dungeon masters. I mean, they were like I mean, they could be up there with like Mercer. I'm telling you, I'm not even kidding. These two guys were incredible dungeon masters, and I was so fortunate to have them.
Where do you think the game will be in 10 years?
I
Where do you want it to be? Maybe is a better way to ask the question.
Well, let me say this: the game will be wherever the gamers want it to be. Because if it's going off in some strange direction that I can't foresee, because I'm not a futurist, they'll always have the earlier editions to play, and people will always play earlier editions. Even now, you have people who will play OD&D or AD&D 1 or 2nd edition or 3rd edition or Pathfinder. And even if we're on to like the 10th edition of the game, the great thing is the game is still, and this is why I don't play edition wars. I love every edition of the game, because ultimately it's about the storytelling. It's about the shared experience around the table and telling that story. 4E gets dragged a lot, but I loved 4E. But I loved 3E and I love 5E, and so it doesn't matter what edition, the game will live on, or be enjoyed in the same way, I think.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right, so with that, we wanted to keep it short today. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Please, Dan, tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, I'm on Instagram at InkedMage, INKDMAGE, and also that same name on YouTube. I tend to get a little bit lazy about posting on YouTube. I primarily use Instagram, and again, it's it's like your mom or dad, like on Instagram, posting family pictures and recipes and stuff. Only I post my recipes for Dungeons of Destruction.
So Dan has a link in his social media account. If you want to give Vorpal a shot, there's a discount code for you in there. If you're interested in checking out our product, vorpalboard.com. We've got a YouTube channel as well, and we're on all socials at Vorpalboard. Everything we did tonight is straight up through Vorpalboard. So there's no OBS magic. This is not a streaming system. This is a way for you to play. So if you like what you saw and you want to give it a shot, check us out. And if you have any questions, you can hit us up on Discord as well. So thank you very much again, Dan. Phenomenal job
Yeah, thank you.
session 1. You've set the bar high for the rest of the Dungeon Masters for this season.
Cool.
And yeah, that was totally epic, my friend. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See you guys.
Bye.